Monosodium glutamate, or MSG, is probably the most punk rock ingredient with the exception of Anthony Bourdain's cigarette ashes. Full of controversy and scandal, it is the bane of wellness nuts and food conspiracy theorists the world over, being allegedly responsible for a nebulous range of ailments including bloating, headaches, and nausea. Of course, scientists would later discover that the source of the headaches could actually be attributed to the whininess of that person's own voice. But we are not going to debunk bad science in this episode. Instead, what we are going to do is learn to work with MSG, because so many people still have a hard time incorporating it into their food. Oftentimes they use too much or are a little too nervous to use it at all. Understandably, people are still a little wary to use an ingredient they've known to be Asian death powder their entire lives. You don't get over that in a day, no matter how cute your little panda shaker might be. So today, we're gonna cook it into something that most people are already used to eating it with. We're gonna cook it with potatoes. Now, if you've ever had a potato chip in your entire life, there is almost a guarantee that you've had MSG with potatoes before. This is salt, by the way. Because the junk food industry has used MSG to make otherwise not very delicious things into things that are delicious. Potato chips being the most common thing among them. This isn't to say that potato chips aren't tasty, but MSG is the thing that makes them so addictive and makes it so hard for you to stop eating them once you start. Is this generally a good thing? Well, in terms of humanity in general, no. But in terms of things that are delicious, MSG in a way operates very much in the same way that salt does. If you can taste the salt in your food, then generally speaking there's too much salt in there. It's salty, too salty. Salt in a dish, when used correctly, does not taste too much like itself. It makes the food taste like the best version of itself. And MSG does the exact same thing. When used correctly, it does not add flavor to a dish, it enhances the flavors that are in there already. This is just some oil and ghee that I'm gonna brush on those potatoes later on. And to this, we're just gonna add just a little bit of salt, as well as 2 dashes of MSG. That's all you need, that's all it takes. And we might as well try some while we have it here. Now, you'll see the first thing that you'll notice is that I did not immediately die or explode or whatever people think will happen whenever you eat the stuff. And oddly enough, it's actually very mild. It tastes like a ramen seasoning packet, like those little packets in the instant noodles that you use to turn into soup. But the weird thing is, it tastes like a much weaker version of that, almost like an eighth of how salty and intense those ramen packets are, which is weird because I'm tasting the pure MSG as opposed to a ramen packet which has a ton of other stuff in there. My mouth is immediately salivating. It's got like the slightest bit of sweetness to it, but mostly it's just a tiny touch of saltiness and an overall depth of savoriness. It's immediately recognizable because it's in so much of our food, and it's immediately recognizable because it is what makes so much of the food we love delicious to us. Now, what does this taste like? This tastes like super butter. Let's just make sure that it's cooked through in the way that we need it. Yes, it is. Perfect. So now, all we're gonna do is just line these potatoes up on a baking sheet, and we're gonna smash them while they're still hot so they have an opportunity to steam out, because the more water they lose at this phase, the crispier they will be. Ow! It's so very good. Buttery, salty, and that whole savory roundness. It's got the addictiveness of a potato chip. But because I didn't use so much of it, it's not overpoweringly so. It doesn't taste fake, it just tastes like a really great buttery potato. And honestly, this is probably one of the easiest ways to incorporate MSG into your food. I mean, should you put it in everything? No, probably not. But at the same time, it will give your cooking an edge. That little bit of je ne sais quoi that people won't be able to put their finger on, but at the same time will still be very familiar to them. So there you have it. Oh God, I can't stop. So there you have it. Butter smashed potatoes with just a little bit of MSG.